to Detroit in Black and White, our Saturday morning edition. I'm Adolph Mongo, sitting here at McShane's on Michigan and Trumbull. Jim Nardone. How you doing, Jim?
Good morning. Doing well, thank you.
And on the screen here in front of us is Allan Lengel, co-founder of Deadline Detroit. Good morning, Allan.
Good morning. Good morning.
You sound like you don't want to be here, man.
Good morning, Vietnam.
Well, you know, he was if he was still alive, he'd be a Trumpite. You know?
No.
Yeah, he was very conservative.
Really?
Yeah, Jesse Jackson, after seeing the movie Good Morning Vietnam, was that the name of the movie? Yeah. He reached out to the real life counterpart of the character Robin Williams played.
Oh, really?
And he wanted him to participate in some protests, etc. The guy said, "I'm a real conservative Republican." So, yeah, he wasn't Robin Williams.
Interesting.
So I bust your bubble on that.
All righty. Well,
here we are. Another last day. Is this the last day of
It's the 29th?
Yeah. It's the last show in New Year.
Yeah.
Well, let's get down to talking. Your outrage, Allan.
My outrage. You know
what? Your outrage of the year.
Of the year? I just have to say the election.
Okay.
It was just such a shit show. There were so many missteps, and I'm really. I mean, it really speaks to America that a guy. I mean, people say, "Oh, there were fraudulent charges or whatever," but I'm not so concerned about the convictions in New York as being. They were. People get to debate that, but the case down in Florida is totally legitimate. I mean, he hid stuff from the FBI after they asked him to return it. The case in the January 6th riot. I'm just amazed that America doesn't care. I mean, it was funny. I watched a woman who she was a comedian, like interviewing somebody at a Trump rally, and said, "Excuse me, well, what do you think about Joe Biden paying $130,000 to a porn star to cover up his affair?" And the guy says, "Joe Biden did that?" And she goes, "Yeah." She goes, "Well, that's another reason why he's not qualified to serve as president." And then she goes, "Oh, you know what? I made a mistake. I'm sorry. That was Trump. Does that matter?" And he goes, "Yeah, my father had affairs. He was a good guy." He goes, "It doesn't really matter." So it's just interesting that years ago when a president lied, which they all lied at some point, it was news. It was big news. But now it's like, the currency, to his credit, the currency of truth has been degraded, where a lot of people say, "I don't care."
But he didn't. But I don't like Donald Trump. But he didn't invent this shit.
You give him too much credit.
Reality TV came into being, and so now everything is. It's like that movie Truman. Everything is on TV. They watching every move, so people don't care. Well, you can't even shock people anymore. I remember when Howard Stern first came on, he was a shock jock. Now he's tame compared to folks in Congress, Fox News. The guy from Shark Tank, Mr. Wonderful from Canada. He's in Florida now negotiating on behalf of Canada to become the 51st state. You can't make this shit up, man. Why would you be surprised that people vote for somebody that's been convicted, somebody that admitted that I did this and did that, and I'm going to free all the folks that went to jail on January the 6th? And then they get upset about Biden pardoning his son, but he's going, whatever's going to happen,
Right.
Yeah.
I'm just listening. I think you underestimate the intelligence. I guess the intelligence maybe of the American people. They looked at both candidates and they didn't like the other one. Right? That's why Donald Trump got elected. I think a lot of people voted for Donald Trump.
And a lot of people didn't vote. That usually Democrats sat at home on their butt and said, no, I'm not voting, period.
People aren't stupid. They go to the gas station. It costs $90 to fill up their gas tank. They blame somebody, whether it's legitimate or not. They're looking at the way things are going. They're looking at a lot of things that they're not happy about. And they were not happy with Joe Biden. And Joe Biden's responsible for a lot of that.
Yeah, I know. I agree they weren't happy with Joe Biden because people are always like unhappy. I mean, they're like, we could be doing better or whatever. But you know what? Gas prices were actually down. Unemployment is down. The economy, inflation was going down.
But they didn't get their message across.
Right. And so
they didn't get their message across. Go ahead.
When you talk about the intelligent, and look, there are a lot of intelligent people who voted for Trump, no question about it. But there are also a lot of if you watch Jordan Klepper from the Comedy Central interview people at the rallies, they don't know. A lot of these people are real. I'm sure they selectively pick the interviews, but some of these people are really, really ignorant and they don't care. They don't.
Well, you go to Israel quite a bit, right?
I've been there for 4 times.
Okay. Well, long-time prime minister, and I think he's just as bad as Trump. And Israelis put him in office. They know he's a crook, he's a thief, and he want to stay in office as long as he can. But yet he is the prime minister. You hold an election, he gets the most votes.
Well, it's not only America. It's not exclusive. It's not exclusive just to America that people ignore. There's no question about it. Look, Netanyahu is a dishonest person. He's got disregard for the same kind of disregard for democracy that Trump has.
But they think that he's the person to defend them against a hostile Middle East. They say, well, he may be fucked up, but he's our fuck up, and I'd rather have him than to have whoever else.
Yeah. Well, they want security. It comes down to fear and security, and people thought they would be safer with Netanyahu, but you look what the hell's happened since October 7th, and up to October 7th, he was trying to weaken the Supreme Court. There were hundreds of thousands of people out in the street constantly protesting. The Middle East was just on fire even before it was truly on fire, and so I don't know.
Thank you, Terry, for your comment. You're absolutely right. You make a good point.
Well, go ahead, Jim. What's your of the year?
And I want to thank all our viewers today. Everybody that's tuning in, like, subscribe, join us. Please participate with us. Well, I don't know if this is an outrage. I'm more so. When I was a young man in college, I had to take a speech class, and I never forgot this. The professor said, you have to give a speech, right? 3-minute speech, whatever, first speech. There's 2 subjects that you cannot talk about. Abortion. Okay, this is 1980, 81, whatever it is. Abortion. And what's the other thing you couldn't talk about?
Religion.
The death penalty.
Oh, death penalty.
Okay. So I don't know if our viewers are outraged. I'm generally against the death penalty. The reason I'm against the death penalty is once you kill somebody, there's no going back, right? If you execute somebody and you find out through evidence that you were wrong, there's no fixing, right?
Oh, you can give them a pardon.
If they're dead.
Yeah, 40, 50, 60 years later and say, oh, the state of Georgia made a mistake.
So I'm going to break that rule today because there's a guy by the name of Marvin Charles Gabriel II, right? Michigan resident. Was a Michigan resident. He's now in Terre Haute Federal Prison. Our current president decided to commute his sentence. I'm going to tell you what this guy did, right? He raped a little girl, 19-year-old girl. He raped her. Her name was Rachel Timmerman. He wrapped her up with chains and cinder blocks, put tape over her eyes and her face, duct tape. She was alive. He threw her in this lake up in on federal land up north of Grand Rapids. Killed her. She had an 11-month-old daughter, anywhere from 11 to 18-month-old daughter, gone. So he basically kidnapped her. He sent a guy out to date her. The guy brought her after he had raped her a year later, before she was set to testify against him. Brought her to him. He killed her little infant daughter, killed the 3 guys that were involved in it, right? Sentenced to death. Interesting that it happened in Michigan. They sentenced him to death.
How long ago was that?
1997.
Why
He
it
was
take so long?
30 or 40 years.
Why was he sitting on death row that long?
Since 2003. 2002, he was sentenced to death row. But our president, in his infinite wisdom, decided to commute his sentence. So he killed at least 5 people, including a infant. The infant was never found. The girl was found chained up at the bottom of this lake up in, I guess, Newega County. So I guess my question to our viewers, my question to everybody, if you're not outraged by this particular case, and some of the guys that the president commuted have killed people since they've been in prison. So it's not that they're no longer a threat. If you're killing somebody and you're in prison, he commuted their sentences. So I guess my question is, why is he getting involved in something that had nothing to do with his presidency?
Well, he's doing a preemptive strike because he figured that the incoming president is going to, one, resume the death penalty on the federal level. 2, pardon all these folks that's in federal lockup now for the January 6th insurrection, as I call it. Who knows why a president, they wait till the end of the term and they start letting people out.
I guess
I noticed the 3 people he didn't let out was
shooters,
the guy from the synagogue and
the church.
The
church.
Dylan Roof. The guy
Charles
from
Center.
the guy from Buffalo. Yes.
Well, you know what? It's interesting. I mean, first of all, the question becomes, I understand it. Look, who's going to have sympathy for the guy you just talked about, Jim? I mean,
nobody.
If he gets killed, it's like, if he's executed. One of the questions becomes, one, the federal death penalty is kind of a joke in that nobody's been executed in 20 years. The second thing is, the question that I always have is like, each state decides at a state level for state cases whether there should be a death penalty or not. That's, when we're talking about states' rights, the federal government can override that with the federal case and go for a death penalty. We've had death penalty cases in Detroit. I don't know that any of them have actually come to a conviction for a death penalty. But the question becomes, should the feds be able to override state rights on issues like that? And I don't know. What do you think?
Well, they killed they executed Timothy McVeigh in a timely manner. I mean, they moved like, motherfucker, you got to go.
Right, but that was Oklahoma.
He didn't rot away on death row.
Right.
He was gone.
Right. Oklahoma, I mean, probably has the death penalty, I'm guessing, where that bombing took place. The fact that the feds were the ones who executed him it's probably.
I think in some cases the feds do have a right to intervene.
Yeah.
But I still think if they see that some kind of miscarriage of justice is taking place, but if the state has the death penalty, they find them guilty, you got appeals, and in these days, going up to the Supreme Court, you're not going to get any sympathy from the majority of the justices there.
I mean, the question is anybody going to be saddened or disappointed? Any of our viewers, if they put Marvin Charles Gabriel II, who threw this 19-year-old girl in the lake while he was alive?
Well, he should have been executed a long time ago.
And they said,
what? The issue, part of the issue becomes like when we see people who say they're pro-life, that every life is precious. There are people who are against the death penalty on those exact same stances. I'd be curious to hear from people who are, pro-life or really anti-abortion is a more accurate description. I'd be curious to see where they talk about every life is precious. I'd be curious to see what they say about the death penalty.
Well, it's the same. It's like I had a speech class in college, and we could talk about abortions and all that. And I took the stance I was anti-abortion. I think I got a B instead of an A because the professor, women's lib type and all this, and she was criticizing my speech and stuff. But I had people say, "Oh, she didn't like it because she's pro-abortion."
Yeah, think about the era. You're talking about Roe v. Wade, right in that era. It was happening in real time when you were there.
I was against Roe v. Wade at the time, but as you get older and you decide that a woman that's her body, not mine. I don't control it. You might not like it. And a lot of these people that's pro-life, they're not adopting these kids. They not, it's always, you can argue on both sides. Yeah. So, yeah. On that one, yeah, the scumbag needed to be put down like a dog, a rabid dog. But he's not. He's going to enjoy a long life.
71.
He's 71.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. He got another 10 years or so.
I don't know that you enjoy being in a federal penitentiary.
Yeah, well, he ain't dead.
Particularly if Terre Haute is not the nicest of all the. That's sort of like a lot of the death. There's probably that's where.
That's where your boy John Gotti died at, right?
Right, exactly.
I mean, it's not a deterrent. The death penalty is not a deterrent to committing a crime.
I agree. It's not a deterrent. It's really more of vengeance on
punishment
on society. I mean, look, guys who commit crimes. Why do you have recidivism? You have so many repeat offenders who murder, rape multiple times. They get caught, they do prison time, they get back out, they do it again. I mean, for some of these people, for you and I, the law's mad. I mean, the idea is like maybe you have a fantasy of murdering somebody at some point in your life, but you'd never do it.
Why don't you hold that thought? We're gonna take a quick break, come back and continue our outrage of the year.
In the heart of Detroit, Bruce Simpson. Our city ombudsman and his team are dedicated to making your voice heard. The City of Detroit Ombudsman is a liaison between the City of Detroit and all persons who have a complaint or inquiry into the operation of a city department or the conduct of a city employee. The Ombudsman works as an independent oversight to provide individuals with an opportunity of giving a confidential avenue to address complaints. You can reach the Ombudsman's office at 313-224-6000 or email us at ombudsmandetroitmi.gov. You can also visit us at the Coleman A. Young Municipal Center. For more information, go to www.detroitmi.gov and type in Ombudsman. We are here to help. In Detroit, we are all one team. When you win, we all win.
Hi, I'm Eric Sabri, your Wayne County Treasurer. If you're living in the home of a deceased family member and you're facing property tax foreclosure, the probate process can be helpful to you. If you file a probate petition and notify our office, the foreclosure proceedings will be halted during the probate process. Contact us at 313-224-5990 or email us at taxinfo@waynecounty.com. We're here to help.
Yeah, welcome back to Detroit in Black and White. Adolph Mongo, Allan Lengel, Jim Nardone, resident fire starter, is not with us this morning. She's preparing for a holiday
extravaganza.
Oh, yeah. Well, anyway, Allan, you got the last word on this. I'll come back later in the show.
I mean, it's an interesting issue there. Like, nobody's going to have sympathy for a lot of these people. I think a lot of it comes down to whether you believe that society should seek revenge against somebody who's done a heinous crime. And I'm not arguing one way or another. Like I said, this guy, I mean, that was a heinous crime.
You don't think Dylan Roof need to be fried?
Yeah. No, you know what? I don't have
Behind the synagogue, the supermarket in Buffalo.
Yeah, the question becomes, it's not like these people, when we say he pardoned or whatever, I mean, these people are going to continue to do a life sentence. Is that a punishment enough? And, obviously some people say no, that's, they should be executed.
But we always had that happen with murder and kill. Look magazine $5,000 where they admitted that they killed a 14-year-old, and it was like, man, we always had to deal with that in America. Justice system is the best thing we got, but it's not perfect, and so we got a president that decided he's gonna let how many people was convicted of murder?
I think 37.
Yeah.
Around 37.
Yeah, he left 3 on for Donald Trump to execute. I think he did it intentionally.
Yeah, my point isn't that whether it's good or bad. My point is, it's done. Why are you getting involved in it? It's been done.
Well, anyway, we're gonna go to our guest, Dr. Anthony Browder. Historian, author, artist, educational consultant, traveled to Egypt. I don't know how many times. Let's bring him on.
All right, I'm here. Nice to meet you, brothers. I've been to Egypt. I've been to Africa over 80 times. I've been to Egypt 68 times.
Well, you must have that VIP pass. They know you, don't they?
I want
They
your
know me.
fire
They
mile.
know me. I've been doing a great deal of work in Egypt. Specifically, I have been excavating tombs in Egypt for the past 15 years. Very proud to say that I'm the first African-American to fund and fully participate in archaeological excavations in Egypt. So Egypt is in my blood.
How did you get involved in that?
Well, I got involved through a mutual Egyptian friend of mine introduced me to a woman who had discovered these tombs. These were 25th dynasty tombs. And she had run out of money to fund the excavation. So I understood the importance of her discovery. I knew that it was too important a discovery to allow to fall through the cracks because of a lack of funding. I made a commitment to raise the funds. And she told me after a year of fundraising, she said, Tony, you just can't bring money to the site. You have to be here and work at the site. So I became physically involved in excavating, bringing groups over to excavate. And over the course of 15 years, we raised over $3 million. We started off excavating 3 tombs, and we ended our season last year having discovered more than 40 tombs.
Wow.
These are tombs of Kushite noblemen on the west bank of Luxor, Egypt. These tombs are 2,700 years old. And
Wow.
based on discoveries that we've made, we are literally rewriting the history of ancient Egypt based on information about the 25th dynasty, which unfortunately traditional Egyptologists refer to the 25th dynasty as the quote unquote Negro dynasty, which suggests to those who know nothing about the history of Egypt that the other dynasties were not Black, were not African. So we've been able to dispel all of that. And again, one of the reasons why I've been so enthralled in traveling to Egypt, taking groups to Egypt and excavating in Egypt is to help rewrite the history of an African country, which some people have moved out of Africa into the so-called Middle East.
Tony, can I ask you a question about the tombs?
Of course.
Did you open them up and were the bodies preserved, or what can you tell us about the state of the bodies?
Sure. We have discovered in the 40 some odd tombs that we found, we discovered over 200 bodies that were in various state of preservation. Majority of these tombs, I would say 90% of the tombs that we've excavated and restored have been usurped. They were used by ancient Egyptians of the 26th dynasty. They were used by the Greeks. They were used by the Romans. And then lastly, the tombs were used as a quarry by the Arab inhabitants who built a village over the site, and they have been robbing the tombs and selling the artifacts that they found to tourists. So these tombs have been desecrated beyond our wildest imaginings. But through the work that we've done, and I want to say this for the record, the 15 years that we've spent with our project the project is named the ASA Restoration Project, named in honor of Dr. Asa G. Hilliard, who died in Egypt at a conference. So everything that we've been doing is honoring the legacy of the person who has educated me and put me on the path to do the work that I've been doing for the past 45 years now.
Where are the tombs now?
The tombs are on the west bank of Luxor in an area known as South Asasif. South Asasif is located between the Valley of the Kings and the Valley of the Queens.
Jim, go ahead.
Well, I've been doing a little research. I'd like to hear about your publications, one. And there's a term that I read about called, is it agitprop? I think that's kind of fascinating. When you talk about impacting history.
Yes, you've been doing your research. So agitprop is a term that means agitation propaganda. We've been socialized to believe that propaganda is bad. Propaganda is about promoting a specific perspective. And so there is agitation propaganda, which is designed specifically to present thoughts that are against the status quo. For example, I heard you all discussing the situation in Israel and Netanyahu. There are those people who believe, based on evidence, that Netanyahu is a crook. And so they would promote information about Netanyahu that presents an alternative perspective. That is agitation propaganda. And so it's simply a matter of expressing certain viewpoints that may conflict with the status quo. But if one is interested in gathering information, we live in an information age, and information rules the world. So if you have inaccurate information, it means that everything that you think, everything that you say, and everything that you do is going to have negative repercussions. So the counterpoint to inaccurate information is accurate information, right? And so the idea is, if we're about educating people, people need to have correct knowledge, specifically correct historical knowledge, so that they then can make decisions about what they do based on these alternative facts, as some people call them.
The Egyptian government. The Egyptian government.
Minute,
yeah, go ahead.
I want to ask Dr. Browder. Growing up, I used to hear, I was in school where they said, well, there's Africa and then there's Egypt.
Yes.
You know, Africa didn't have anything. Egypt had it all. And I look at a map and say, isn't Egypt part of Africa? Well, how did that come about, where Egypt just was taken out of the continent and used for whatever purposes that historians used it for?
Great. That's a perfect question. And in answering that question, I'm going to tie it into the question that I was just asked about agitation propaganda. Most of what we know about Egypt, and I can say this based on my own personal experiences, studying Egyptian history for 47 years, traveling to Egypt for 44 years, I can tell you, based on my own personal experiences, that 90% of what we've been taught about Egypt is wrong. Flat out wrong. 99% of what we've been taught about Africa is also wrong. So my role as someone who engages in agitation propaganda is to dispel these lies and these myths with documented historical information. Anybody can say anything, but the question is, do you have the facts? Do you have the receipts to back up what you say? So the reason why Egypt has been taken out of Africa is because Egypt is the crown jewel of human accomplishments. The architectural developments, the governmental developments, the engineering and science and philosophy that has inspired the world for thousands of years came out of Egypt. And Egypt is an extension of Nile Valley culture and civilization. So the people who created the science of Egyptology were Europeans who were conditioned, socialized to believe that people of African ancestry had no intelligence, had no capacity to develop great civilizations. So then, as W.B. Du Bois said, it's no coincidence that the field of Egyptology rose during the height of the enslavement of African people. So as people were now beginning to travel to Egypt and studying Egyptian history and seeing images of Black people, seeing evidence and documentation that identified these people as people of African ancestry, they could not accept that reality. And so they had to present Egypt as a white country, and they also ultimately had to remove Egypt out of Africa. So it was a American reporter.
Is that why they knocked off the noses of a lot of these?
Well, that's another story, and that's another interview. I could spend an hour just talking about that alone. But
Well, we're gonna take a break. We're gonna come back. We'll go to you, Allan. This is Detroit in Black and White with Dr. Anthony Browder. We'll be right back.
In the heart of Detroit, Bruce Simpson. Our city ombudsman and his team are dedicated to making your voice heard. The City of Detroit Ombudsman is a liaison between the City of Detroit and all persons who have a complaint or inquiry into the operation of a city department or the conduct of a city employee. The Ombudsman works as an independent oversight to provide individuals with an opportunity of giving a confidential avenue to address complaints. You can reach the Ombudsman's office at 313-224-6000 or email us at ombudsmandetroitmi.gov. You can also visit us at the Coleman A. Young Municipal Center. For more information, go to www.detroitmi.gov and type in Ombudsman. We are here to help. In Detroit, we are all one team. When you win, we all win.
Hi, I'm Eric Sabri, your Wayne County Treasurer. If you're living in the home of a deceased family member and you're facing property tax foreclosure, the probate process can be helpful to you. If you file a probate petition and notify our office, the foreclosure proceedings will be halted during the probate process. Contact us at 313-224-5990 or email us at taxinfo@waynecounty.com. We're here to help.
Yeah, welcome back to Detroit in Black and White. Allan, you had a question.
Yeah, Tony, I had a question. What the Egyptian government and President El-Sisi and stuff, how cooperative are they, and what's the incentive to let people like you come and do all your excavation and research?
That's a great question as well, and I'm going to be very judicious with my response because. Just because. So the Egyptian government has been very cooperative. We've been working closely with the Egyptian Antiquities Department, and they have been extremely helpful. The thing that concerns me at this moment is that there has been a growing element within Egyptian society that is anti-African. There's an element that is opposed to people like me talking about the African origins of ancient Egypt. And so I'm old enough, I'm smart enough to realize that that is not a unique attitude. I see the same attitude right here in the United States of America. There are people, there are politicians in this country who are opposed to us talking about the history of enslavement here in the United States. And they want to remove courses in school systems and colleges that discuss the history of American slavery. So people are informed oftentimes by how they are misinformed. And I am someone who is dedicated to telling historical documented truths and sharing those truths with those people with the greatest need to know.
Is that racism?
Sorry, Allan, you asked me what?
Is it racism, basically, that people don't want to acknowledge the Black component of Egypt, or what?
That would be too easy a response to say yes. It's more fueled by ignorance. Racism is a byproduct of ignorance and misinformation, a belief that a certain set of people are inferior simply because of the complexion of their skin or where they were born. That's foolishness.
Why did they get mad at Lou Gossett playing Sadat, and he looked just like him? He could have been his brother.
Well, one of the reasons why they were angry at Sadat, angry at Lou Gossett, was because there was a certain element. And again, I don't want to paint all Egyptians with the same brush, which is ignorant. There is a certain element within every society that thrives off of ignorance and disinformation. So Anwar Sadat, when he became, after Nasser died, Sadat became the president. And Sadat said he was the first true pharaoh of Egypt in over 2,000 years. Why does Sadat say that? He said that because his mother was Nubian. And so the Nubians are the descendants of the indigenous inhabitants of ancient Egypt. Sadat's father was Arab. Arabs did not conquer Egypt until 648 AD. The civilization of ancient Egypt was established 3200 BC, and it was established by indigenous African people who came from the south, who came from Sudan, who came from Kenya, who came from Ethiopia. And if one has a baseline understanding of the history of ancient Egypt, one would see that. But because of the fact we're dealing with people who have their own agenda, the truth does not matter to them.
Well, some of them claim that, you know, they really want to be Greek, that Cleopatra really was Greek. She was more Greek than she was.
I mean, so look, context is everything, right? Context is everything. So let me just drop this on you, brother, so that you can understand the bigger dimension of what we're dealing with. As I stated at the top of this conversation, 90% of what we've been taught about Egypt is wrong, right? For example, Egypt is a Greek word. Pyramid is a Greek word. Sphinx is a Greek word. So if you don't know the original name of that object, of that nation, and of that building, then you don't know squat. Most people don't know that. So I'll just give this to you all, and an enticement for people to come out and hear me speak at Unity Temple tomorrow at noon. So Egypt is a Greek word. The original name for the country is Kemet. Kemet is a word which means the nation of the blacks. Sphinx is a Greek word. The word Sphinx means to strangle or to hold. The original name of that statue is Her Em Aket, which means their rule on the horizon. Pyramid is a Greek word. Pyramids, contrary to what we've been taught, pyramids are not tombs. There are 118 pyramids in Egypt, and there are no tombs in any of them, 0. So anyone who tells you that a pyramid is a tomb does not know the history of Kemet or ancient Egypt. So to answer your point about Cleopatra, the Greeks conquered Kemet in 332 BC and changed the name of the country to Egypt. Cleopatra is a descendant of the Greek rulers. She was the last of the Greek rulers of Egypt. And once she died, the Romans came in and appropriated everything that the Greeks had taken out of Egypt. So they present Egypt from a Greco-Roman perspective, which is non-African. That is correct. That is accurate. I'm not going to claim Cleopatra. I will claim Queen T. I will claim Amenhotep III. I will claim Akhenaten. I will claim Khufu. I will claim Imhotep, because these people were unquestionably of African descent.
What are you speaking on at Unity Temple tomorrow?
I will be speaking on 2 topics. I'll be talking about why Kemet matters, why it's important to know this information, and I also will be talking briefly about my latest book, which is entitled Finding Karakamen. Karakamen is the name of the priest whose tomb we excavated and restored. So I'll be talking briefly about my 15 years working with this excavation project and why all of this should matter to everybody, not just Black people, but everybody can afford to be re-educated with accurate information that allows them to see themselves and the history from a different point of view.
Tony,
where are you teaching that now?
Sure. Pardon me?
Where are you teaching at now? Your adjunct professor says at University of Maryland, Baltimore. Are you still there?
No, I'm not teaching there because, to be honest with you, teaching is too restrictive. I write, I lecture, I research. I've been independent. I have my own company, and I write books that are used in school systems around the world. So my classroom is the world.
Okay. I have a question. Being Jewish, I have a curiosity about Egypt.
Sure.
During Passover, we read the Haggadah and the whole thing about the history of slavery.
Mhm.
What evidence during your archaeological digs have you had of the Jewish presence in Egypt?
Sure. Well, listen, Allan, let me share this with you. I will share with you the works of two Jewish writers. One is Sigmund Freud, who he wrote the book Moses and Monotheism, but he said that he did not want that book to be published until after he died because he knew he would catch hell. It was Sigmund Freud who said that Moses was an Egyptian. It was Sigmund Freud who said that the Exodus, as we have been taught, did not happen the way that it's documented. And then another book that I would refer you and your audience to is a book written by another Jew by the name of Gary Greenberg. And the book is called The Moses Mystery. And what Greenberg does is build on the research of Sigmund Freud and proves that Sigmund Freud's findings were based in truth. So I can tell you this based on what I know, not what I think, and not what I believe, that Moses was an Egyptian, that the 10 Commandments were derived from the 42 admonitions of Ma'at. And based on what I've read, I wasn't there, I can only cite sources. The Exodus, as it has been presented to us, did not happen the way that it's documented in the Bible. So I know these issues are controversial, but what I always encourage people to do is if you want to make a statement, that statement should be made based upon citing multiple sources, not just one. So you present an argument, you present the facts to substantiate your argument, and you let the facts speak for themselves. So these are discussions that need to be had, and they need to be held in an environment where people of goodwill can come together and have an intelligent conversation and grow from that conversation.
And the slavery, did you find a existence of slavery, of Jewish slavery in?
I have not. And let me say this, that there is no evidence, zero evidence whatsoever that the pyramids were built by slave labor. And of course, there's no evidence that Jews built the pyramid. I mean, I've heard stories about that, but Sadat, matter of fact, when Sadat and Menachem Begin were in Giza signing the peace accord that Jimmy Carter had negotiated, Begin said how proud he was to be in Egypt and to see the pyramids that his ancestors built. And Sadat said, no, my friend. These pyramids were built by my people at least 300 years before Abraham was born. So historical information oftentimes contradicts biblical information, and one has to have a desire to want to move beyond belief to get to foundational truths that will allow us to see ourselves and the world through a different lens.
Jim, go ahead. You got a question.
Can you just tell us a little bit about your daughter and how this developed and how your daughter and you work together on some of these projects?
Oh, well, thank you. Thank you for that question. So I believe what everybody else believed. I believed that Egypt wasn't in Africa. I believe that the Egyptians were white. Everything that I have been exposed to throughout elementary school, high school, and college, every magazine that I read, every movie that I saw reinforced that fact. It was on February 21st, 1977, that I went to attend a lecture by a scholar by the name of Dr. Ivan Van Sertima, who had just published a book entitled They Came Before Columbus, and he documented the presence of African people from the Nile Valley in the Americas 2,500 years before Christopher Columbus was born. He provided the evidence, and then he said that the ancient Egyptians were Black. That blew my mind. So I was 26 years old when I learned that information. That prompted me to start reading. I discovered books that I refer to today as forbidden knowledge, books with historical information that contradicted the narrative that I have been fed all of my life, and it opened my mind to a new horizon. That's when I started traveling to Africa. That's when I began to research the history for myself, and my eyes were open. And so I made a commitment as a single parent raising my 4-year-old daughter. I made a commitment to her that I was not going to allow her to be miseducated as I have been miseducated. So I've assumed responsibility for not only raising her, but also taking her to Africa with me. So she made her first trip to Africa with me in 1986 when she was 7 years old.
Wow.
And then we published her first book when she was 8 years old. That book is entitled My First Trip to Africa, and it documents her trip to Egypt. So my daughter at that time was the youngest published author in America. So she's been to Egypt 17 times. She worked with me at my archaeological excavations. So through my working with my daughter, who's an educator, we are documenting our experiences and sharing them with other young children so that they can learn the truth about history, the truth about Africa, and they won't be as miseducated as I had been. That's my obligation, not only to my daughter, but to every child in the United States of America.
Well, what time you're going to be at Unity? That's over in Palmer Park area.
I will be speaking at the 10 o'clock service, talking on the Kwanzaa principle for the day. And then after the service at noon, I'll be doing a workshop from the subjects that I just referenced a few minutes ago, and then having a book signing. So I've got 2 activities tomorrow at Unity Temple, and I encourage everyone listening, if you found what I had to say interesting, controversial, come out tomorrow to Unity Temple, participate in Kwanzaa, and then participate in the workshop afterwards. Buy a book, expand your mind, and let's have some intelligent grown folk conversation about history and the world.
Well, we're going to have you back, Dr. Browder, because I want to really talk about those statues where they chop off the noses.
Yeah.
Or when Napoleon invaded Egypt, they defaced a whole lot of stuff there.
Look, I am committed to sharing what I know to be the truth. So I'm more than happy to come back. And let me just leave you with this before I go. There are many statues that have noses, lips, and heads knocked off. Not all of those statues were defaced by white people or racists. Some of those statues were destroyed by Egyptians themselves, or the people of Kemet themselves, because of a variety of reasons. So we can discuss that when I come back. And yes, I saw someone in the thread said that this is woke information. I'd rather be awake than asleep. So, we move through life as people whose eyes and minds are wide open. And I'm here on this planet for a reason. And I'm going to fulfill my reason for being here and make God and my ancestors proud.
Well, thank you, Dr. Anthony Browder. We're going to have you back, and hopefully you have a good discussion tomorrow at Unity.
I'll do my best, and thank you so much for having me on your program. I look forward to talking to you guys again. Take care and have a productive new year.
Thank you.
You too. Dr. Anthony Browder. He got a lot of knowledge. Yeah, he can do the whole show, Listen, I got into it one time with a classmate up at U of M, and he was talking about we was talking about Africa, and he was saying, don't mention Egypt because it's not in Africa. I was like, where is it at? I'm trying to figure out. Or you like the OJ? Sure. Remember Love Train? Yeah. They talking about the train was in Africa, in Egypt too. Yeah. So, they didn't even get it right. So I see where he's coming
separated from. Egypt.
What do you think, Allan?
I thought it was pretty fascinating. I have a lot more questions for him, but I thought it was very fascinating. I mean, it's such a fascinating country, and I mean, the history, and then even the current events right now, where Egypt used to be the powerhouse in the Middle East, and then Iran started to try to take over as the powerhouse there. But Egypt has still got some power there, certainly in the Middle East.
Well,
Fascinating country.
Well, it is what it is. Let's take a break, come back, and we'll continue our conversation. Detroit in Black and White, Allan Lengel, Jim Nardone, and Adolph Mongo. We're here at McShane. It's supposed to be summer weather today, what, in the 50s?
58.
Man, we'll be right back.
In the heart of Detroit, Bruce Simpson. Our city ombudsman and his team are dedicated to making your voice heard. The City of Detroit Ombudsman is a liaison between the City of Detroit and all persons who have a complaint or inquiry into the operation of a city department or the conduct of a city employee. The Ombudsman works as an independent oversight to provide individuals with an opportunity of giving a confidential avenue to address complaints. You can reach the Ombudsman's office at 313-224-6000 or email us at ombudsmandetroitmi.gov. You can also visit us at the Coleman A. Young Municipal Center. For more information, go to www.detroitmi.gov and type in Ombudsman. We are here to help. In Detroit, we are all one team. When you win, we all win.
Hi, I'm Eric Sabri, your Wayne County Treasurer. If you're living in the home of a deceased family member and you're facing property tax foreclosure, the probate process can be helpful to you. If you file a probate petition and notify our office, the foreclosure proceedings will be halted during the probate process. Contact us at 313-224-5990 or email us at taxinfo@waynecounty.com. We're here to help.
He's not feeling well. He's got a cold.
Okay, we're back. Detroit in Black and White. And thanks, Dr. Anthony Browder. He was pretty interesting.
Fascinating.
Yeah, enjoyed it. Yeah.
A lot of good comments, too.
80 times. Man, that's a lot of times.
It's a lot of frequent flyer miles.
No, I knew you was going to say that. He takes Spirit. No, I don't know what he takes.
Millions, tens of millions of dollars to do some of them. I'm sure those excavations cost tens of millions of dollars.
I know. You got to raise a lot of money. And for a long time, they've been robbing those tombs for forever. That's how people get paid. So here we are. Back.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. Like we have what do they call it? Mausoleums or whatever, where people are buried in. Like down at Duke University, the founders of that. There's some mausoleums there or whatever for them. I think it's interesting, the rituals of death, how different cultures deal with that. It's interesting that how they dealt with it.
But why are the Western nations the only folks? We go rob everybody else's shit and then get upset if somebody come and impose on our dead.
Yeah. I mean,
a Native American burial ground. They had no problems keeping mummified Native American bodies out for display. But they did that to everybody, especially in the Old West. People made money off of this shit.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting that in Israel, you could die at 1:00 in the afternoon. Your funeral will be at 8:00 at night. They wrap you in a talus, like a shawl. They drop you in the ground. There's no coffin. There's some wood normally, sort of.
Don't they do that for the Muslims too?
I'm not sure about that, but
yeah, they bury them the next
I
day.
like it. I like that. It's the simplicity of it, as opposed to here, where sometimes you go shopping for a casket, and they try to sell you the most expensive caskets. And
a waste of money. Like I said, if you want to, you can take me, put me in buck pickup. Don't spend $1. Don't give the funeral home $1. And if it had an emergency, if you're gonna take me to Sinai Grace, just keep going past Sinai Grace and take me to Swanson Funeral Home, because they're gonna kill you at Sinai Grace. So do not pass that. Pass
Sinai Grace.
$11,000 for a funeral. You see those commercials on TV? I'm going to my homecoming. I got the insurance. Man,
Right.
It's a racket. If you know, it's a racket. So
Yeah, it is quite a racket. I mean, they have plain pine boxes, and people opt for these like crazy expensive.
It used to be you can get cremated, and it was very reasonable. Now the funeral home people and got smart. Now they put it up. Yeah, that's crazy. Then
Right.
I can do a Viking funeral. Just put me on a fucking boat, take me out the bill, I'll set it on fire.
Hey, that should be our business. Low budget funerals. $200 out the door.
Call Uber instead of a hearse. But anyway, I'm supposed to have a outrage of the year. Oh no, man! There's so many. I don't know what the outrages are. I guess I'm just looking at all the crazy folks. I wonder how many of these people are gonna get confirmed, because right now they got a civil war going on with the mega people, and Elon Musk is saying, I can't believe it, that we need to get rid of the racists out of the Republican Party. He's part of the bullshit.
Right.
And now it's them versus the old guard versus the new guard.
Yeah.
Are they going to elect a new speaker? Are they going to be without a speaker? Are they going to certify the election? Are they going to certify any of these, confirm a lot of these folks that Trump present before the Senate? Or is he going to find a way to get around and he don't have to have Herschel Walker got to go for an interview before the Senate?
I don't know that you have to be confirmed. You have to get
confirmed. I don't think he knows where the Bahamas is. No, but those jobs are ceremonial jobs.
Those are gifts. Those are gifts to your buddies.
I don't care, about that shit. But when you get somebody that has an issue, he's the Secretary of Defense. He comes straight from Fox TV.
Right.
And here they're negotiating for the sale of Greenland. They're going to invade the Panama Canal and take it over.
Windsor. We're getting ready to I think we're lining up troops.
Well, we have tried to invade Canada several times and never were able to complete the mission. So, that's my outrage, is that we're come to the point where you started out saying, how do they vote for a person like Donald Trump? I said, Donald Trump didn't invent dysfunction in this country.
Yeah, he just capitalized on it.
Well, I'm looking at the Fifth Estate. Y'all created it. I'm no longer part of it. Reality TV shows and shit, it's like it's the norm now.
Yep.
You can do and say anything. You put it on TV.
Yep.
There's nothing that shocked the American people anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And I sat here and listened to Jim talk about he's not really for the death penalty, but you gave a passionate defense on why we need it at certain times and certain cases. So Trump didn't invent it. He just took it to another level, and here he is. he's done something that only one other president has done. He got elected, got defeated, and came back and got elected again. So we'll see how it goes.
Yeah.
Will he have this majority at the halfway point? I don't think so. I think they're gonna kick out some of these people. That's just the way it is. Obama had a mandate and still had a hard time getting stuff through. So it's not a slam dunk by the Republicans. We see that they're already at each other's throats.
It's going to be chaotic. I mean, Trump, that's sort of his brand is chaos. And he's ready. I mean, talking about taking over Canada, Greenland, trying to get back.
That's just bullshit. You know what? At first, he wanted to get rid of TikTok, and now he likes TikTok.
Well, I don't think leading by fear is going to work at this point because a lot of the Republicans, some of them will be retiring, some of them aren't afraid of that. And I think that's going to be the difference going forward. I think you're going to find some Republicans that are going to go, wait, if I don't agree with you, I'm not voting for your package. I think we've already seen that.
And they better be careful they got a slim 4 vote majority in the House. If 4 of them or 5 of them decide I'll go with the Democrats, Jeffries can be the speaker. Now, anything possible under this.
I like Jeffries. I like
your final thought, Allan.
My final thought. You know what? When I think ahead into 2025, we're talking about General Motors and Dan Gilbert with the Renaissance Center. I'd like to see more transparency on their part. First of all, GM is going to be moving their headquarters, which really isn't their headquarters.
No, it's in Warren.
Yeah, Warren is where Warren. I think they have, I don't know, over 10,000 employees. They're talking about maybe 2,000 employees over in the Hudson's building. At the same time, we're not seeing any transparency. At the same time, they want public money, and they're basically telling us none of your business. We don't have to give you details, but at the same time,
give them shit.
We'd like to get $250 million for that. So once you ask, it's like a kid saying, I'm independent, and asking the parents for money, and then saying, don't ask me what I'm doing, I'm independent. Well, don't ask me for money. If you don't want to ask for money, then you can be more private. But I'd like to see how many people are moving in to the Hudson's building. I'd like to know what their contract is if Dan Gilbert's giving it for free to GM or at a deep discount. And I'd like to know what is going to happen to the Rensen and what public monies is going to be used to.
I say move the homeless people into the Rensen. Make it New Jack City. Go ahead.
I like to talk about the experiment that is Detroit in black and white for just a minute with our viewers, our colleagues out there. We're going on 2 years here, and I want to thank everybody that pays attention. I want to thank the guests. We've had today was a great example of one of the best guests. We've had Chris Hansen, we've had Dr. Cornell West, and this experiment started after 7 years of a radio program, and we can't banter back and forth like we could with the people on the telephone, but this experiment's moving forward. I'm happy to be a part of it, and as we move forward in the new year, I think we're all kind of blessed here, and I'll say the word blessed.
And thank you, Jim, Teresa, Allan, Vanessa, and thanks to our viewers. And we'll be back next week. It's Wednesday. That's not New Year's Day, is it?
It is. Probably next Friday.
Next Friday. I know you probably be out drinking bourbon somewhere. Anyway, we'll see you next Friday.